Hey, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over two of Yujin's kind of more popular builds. That way you guys can prepare yourselves for whenever the ultimate version of Yujin comes out later on this year in December. We're going to go over his Duty and Sacrifice build as well as his Proliferating Allergy build. The Duty and Sacrifice is more catered towards like support and keeping your team alive. It's really good in the wall crasher fight or just any sort of missions where you want to keep all your teammates alive. And then his Proliferating Allergy build is more catered towards mobbing and kind of killing a bunch of mobs at once with his second ability. So we're going to go over both of those today. As always, if you guys do need screenshots, they are at the end of the video, or if you jump to this timestamp right here on screen. But without further ado, let's jump in and let's check it all out and see how it works. So Yujin is in a really interesting spot right now. There's not a whole lot of stuff in the game that really requires a support or even just a healer, but he has some pretty good merits. He can actually buff the team in a lot of really interesting ways to make everyone else very strong. The first build we're going to go over is his healing build, his more support, more catered towards the wall crasher fight or, any sort of boss battles. You can take this into Stormhanger as well. You can kind of bring this into anything. I like to play support in a lot of games, and I fell in love with this build whenever I kind of started putting it together. It is a really good one, so let's jump into it. For the Transcendent module, we're going to be using Duty and Sacrifice. Now, this is kind of the one that is catered towards his support build, his healing build. Basically, whenever you use your fourth ability, this will actually change it to just kind of activate your fourth ability, almost like a healing cast. And it basically will heal everyone, including yourself, and then they will just continuously heal for, the remainder of its duration. I have this on a 6.4 second cooldown, so basically I can full heal everyone on my team, including myself, every 6 seconds. It's pretty nuts. It is very, very good. You just like to keep everyone alive, and it's really awesome to just kind of see, oh no, someone's getting low, and then you cast this and boop, never mind, they're good, they're full healed. The first thing we're going to focus on is cooldown because we want to be able to spam our fourth ability and just map heal everyone constantly. We're going to be using Nimble Fingers, MP Conversion, Focus on Non-Attribute, as well as Focus on Fusion. All four of these are going to be giving us reduction in our cooldown. And then we are building into non-attribute and fusion, so that just makes sense to have these thrown on as well, just to increase the amount of healing we can do with our fourth ability. We're also going to be wanting to expand the range, so we're going to be using skill expansion just to give us a little bit more bump in range. This helps with our third ability. Whenever our teammates are around, we can kind of cast this and have a bigger effective area of healing, as well as our second ability and really our first ability, just to kind of keep everyone topped up with heals. We're going to make those heals a little stronger with medical support. Now, basically, this just allows our healing to just be a little better, just keeping our teammates alive, and also just making our fourth ability heal for a metric crap ton of health. So very, very good here with this one. And then, of course, we're going to build into our own HP, so we are also alive in the fight. We're going to be using increased HP and HP amplification just to give us a huge bump to our HP. This is going to keep us healthy so we can actually stay alive to keep others alive. Now, the way that we're going to deal our damage in this build is going to be with our weapons. So we're going to be thrown on shot focus to just make our firearm attack a little bit better. This does hurt our skill power modifier, but it doesn't hurt a ton since we're not really dealing damage with our skills. We're more so healing with our skills. So it's not a huge downside, but the firearm attack definitely helps. And then to round it all off and kind of where we get our damage is going to be Passionate Sponsor. Basically, when you buff or recover an ally, firearm and explosive attack and our skill power modifier are all increased by 7.5% each time that we do any of those like healing effects up to 10 seconds. So we can actually get like a massive increase to our weapons firearm attack as well as our skill power modifier, which is why shot focuses negatives don't really hurt us. But this is super important with this build because it just makes us stronger. And in a fight where we're dealing damage with our guns and also healing, this just kind of makes the most sense to put this on. For the trigger module, we're going to be using Particle Conversion Emitter. This is kind of like the support skill or the support trigger module. Basically, whenever we use any sort of like ally enhancement, healing, whatever the case may be, skill, we will gain a stack of particle transmission. And whenever we get to 12 stacks of that, it actually converts into particle emission. And basically what that does is we will deal additional damage proportional to skill power whenever attacking an enemy. So for instance, in my case, whenever we do actually get to max stacks, we're going to be dealing an additional 45% of our skill power. This is going to happen for 5 seconds, and it's basically like a tick. So they'll be taking damage every 0.3 seconds for a max of 5 seconds. This just gives us a tiny bit of extra damage whenever we are actually using our abilities, which is very often. So this just gives us a little bit of extra damage. It helps just kind of round out the build and kind of give him more damage to actually deal, because he isn't really a damage dealer. He's more of a healer. So if we can squeeze out a little bit of extra damage, it never hurts. All right, guys, so here is the full support build. Get your screenshots if you need them, but we're going to go jump into his mobbing setup that is going to be with proliferating allergy and how that one works. That's more dedicated towards like dealing damage with my skills versus healing my team. So let's go jump over there and let's check out those mods. For the mobbing build, we are going to be switching our Transcendent mod. It kind of completely changes how the build works, but we're going to be using proliferating allergy. Basically, this changes your second ability to now inflict like a debuff on the enemies, and it will last either for 5 seconds or whenever the actual enemy dies. When they die with that debuff, they will explode and they deal damage to nearby enemies. This is a great way to clear packs of enemies, and you can just keep throwing these, keep inflicting debuffs, and eventually they will like blow up. Or you can actually just inflict this debuff on something, then kill it with your weapons, or your allies can kill it with their weapons or their abilities or whatever, and then it will actually like chain reaction and kind of blow everything up. We are also going to be using Nimble Fingers and MP conversion on this build, and then this one is more going towards like the singular side or singular damage. So we're going to be throwing on focus on singular here for another additional skill cooldown, as well as singular damage, which is what we are going to be kind of building in towards. The second ability is singular damage, therefore now we are flipping away from fusion and focusing more on singular. For that reason, we are also going to be using singular amplification as well as non-attribute amplification. This is going to be how we are going to get our skill power in this build. And we don't really want to be critical hitting, so the negatives are not even relevant, because this is not a crit designed build. This is more just like raw power. Speaking of power, we are also going to be throwing on power increase to give us a huge bump in our just kind of basic skill power. This kind of helps the game do the math in the correct way to allow like that additional damage. So definitely want to put this on. We do want a slight bit of increase to our range. That way, whenever these little like clouds explode, and they can actually like inflict more damage and also inflict the debuff onto more enemies. So we're going to be throwing on amplification control here for that effective skill range, as well as a little bit of max shield, which never hurts us, but the range is kind of basically what we want here. If you needed a little bit more range though, you could just switch this for skill expansion just to give us an additional like 40-something% range. Honestly, either one will do fine here. The extra shield is very helpful, but if you don't think you need that extra shield, then you definitely can swap this for skill expansion for a little bit more range. We're also going to be throwing on strong mentality. This is going to just reduce our skill cost. We are spamming our second ability with this build, so the less MP we have to use each time we use our abilities, the better, just because we are spamming our second ability over and over and over. We're also going to throw increased HP on just to have a little bit more health. The longer that we can stay in the fight, the longer that we can actually keep everyone else alive. So this is definitely a good spot for an HP mod. It's kind of up to you which one you want to use, but you could also technically switch this for kind of anything. Think of this as either a free slot or an HP slot. To round the whole entire build out, we're going to be using Decimator. It's basically like designed for this. This is sort of in a way very similar to how Freyna plays, so it makes sense if we're inflicting a debuff on an enemy to just gain more skill power modifier when we actually kill that debuffed enemy. So Decimator definitely works perfect here. It fits the exact play style that we're going to be using with this build. For the trigger module, we're going to be using Death by 1,000 Cuts. Now this just works very well with this build because we are going to be mobbing and we want to have sort of a more mobbing style, and we're going to be using an explosive projectile pretty much non-stop. So this just kind of makes sense. Basically, every third ability we throw with our second ability is going to activate this and just rain down extra little Arche meteors. So it just helps with our mobbing, helps with kind of our like map presence, and just all around kills those random dudes off to the side that we're not even really focusing on. Here is the full build for the mobbing setup. Now this one is also super fun. I really enjoy this one for just kind of more general play. And then whenever I do kind of want to be more of a support player, I'll switch back over to the support build and kind of switch some stuff around in order to make it more catered towards the situation. So I would say this is like one giant build. It just depends on the style you want. So if you want more of a mobbing style, you're going to use this one. If you want more of a support healer style, you're going to use this one. So I would say they're kind of both the same thing. You're just changing how his abilities work. Okay, so for the weapons, I'm going to be using the same exact weapons across both builds. It's more catered towards what the weapon actually does rather than specific to the mobbing side of the build or the actual support side. So just what they do is what I use them for. For my mobbing weapon, I use the Malevolent. Now, the Malevolent can be replaced here if you don't have it. If you guys are a new player and did not get a chance to obtain this yet, it will eventually come back into the game, I'd imagine, just like Voltia did. If you don't have it, you can use other things. Thunder Cage is a really good option. However, I'm going to be using Malevolent for these builds for my mobbing weapon. This is my mobbing tool, and I have this built towards chill. I have this built towards like Purge 10. This is a pretty popular build. It's a payout build. You guys know this build. I've shown it multiple times. You have infinite ammo basically for 3 seconds when you hit weak points, and everything is just catered towards chill damage, more ammo, more damage, and like fire rate and stuff like that. So super simple build. I've covered it before. Here's the actual like rolls or cores itself. You're building into chill, you're building into firearm attack, and you're building into fire rate. This thing is just a monster. It's a monster when it comes to mobbing. This is how I would build it. It's just, I use this for everything in the game, basically. And then the other gun I use is going to be in the Wall Crasher fight specifically. It's going to be the Enduring Legacy. Now, I'm still working on its cores. I haven't really had a lot of time to play recently, so I haven't been able to actually go grind out cores and actually re-roll these, but this is how I would build it. We want to go into fire attack. We want to be dealing fire damage with this. And we're going to be taking this in specifically to Wall Crasher to help our Serenas deal more fire damage with this gun's unique ability. Basically, the longer we hold our trigger down and actually are like landing hits on Wall Crasher, the more damage he's going to receive when it comes to fire damage. So I'm making all of the Serenas that are using Ancient Knight better just by using this weapon in that fight. Therefore, we can actually like melt down the boss faster. For its actual rolls and whatnot, I do have the actual build like fully solidified, but the cores and stuff, honestly, I would use exactly what I have here. Your critical hit damage, your fire damage, your recoil. This thing kicks like crazy, so the recoil is pretty helpful, as well as aimed shot accuracy. You could change these for other things. This gun doesn't have the greatest cores in the game, so that's a little unfortunate, but the recoil and the aim shot accuracy definitely help this gun a lot. As for the build itself, we are going to be building this into critical hit damage, critical hit rate, so we're going to be using better insight, better concentration, edging shot. Have aiming gives us more weak point damage. We have built into fire, so there's that. And then we're using sharp precision shot just because sharp precision shot just works really well with this gun. Basically losing that fire rate, but when you hold that trigger, which we want to be doing anyway, you're going to increase your fire rate and actually make this thing shoot really fast, like towards the end of its clip. And then like the expanded weapon charge just gives us a massive magazine. So you could just sit there and just constantly be holding that trigger, dealing a ton of damage, and you know the actual damage is coming from these two as well. So super basic build. The gun works really well in that fight, but the main reason we're using it is because I am buffing my other Serenas or my other players' fire damage. So very, very good for Wall Crasher. As for your reactor, it's going to switch depending on how you're using or like what build you're using. So for instance, for the actual support side of things, we're going to be wanting to push into fusion. So I'm going to be using a skill cooldown and fusion power boost ratio, as well as a non-attribute and fusion reactor. And then just match your mounting. And then we're going to flip it and do the exact same thing with the other build, except now we're going to be building more into singular. So skill cooldown and singular skill power boost ratio, match your mounting. That's pretty much like, if you don't know what to put on a reactor, just put the type of damage you're dealing and skill cooldown. Like, that's like a really good combo. Honestly, it works in a lot of builds. But just depending on what you're using this for, singular for mobbing, fusion for healing, I guess. Just depending on the build, it will depict which reactor you're using. And then as for your actual like external components, this also is pretty specific to what you're doing. For instance, I'm going to be using the circulation set whenever it comes to fighting Wall Crasher. there is the most amount of allies in the party in that actual fight, since it's an 8-player activity. Therefore, we're going to be getting the biggest benefit from this set. So basically, whenever I use a healing skill on an ally, I get this buff called Tolerance. And then Tolerance will give me different intervals of like my HP heal modifier, my MP heal modifier, and my skill cost, just depending on how many allies are actually like in the party. So this is perfect for Wall Crasher. This actually drops from Wall Crasher. It makes so much sense to work with Yujin. It's just super, super good for that fight. As for the cores, max HP and defense all the way down. And then you're going to want to just build into all of the normal typical things, your MP recovery in and out of combat, your MP recovery modifier, your HP, your MP, your defense, your max shield, your toxin resist. Please fix processors. They're so bad. Now, when I'm using this support build just kind of out in the wild, I'm just running around Axion or whatever the case may be, I actually take this set off, and instead I'm going to do this live and in person. We're going to strip these down, and I'm going to show you what I use for just like general out in the wild play, or even like purge or whatever. So we're going to be rocking a 2-piece Enlightened Mage, the top 2 pieces specifically. And then we're also going to be rocking the bottom 2 pieces of Shell Crusher. Shell Crusher is going to give us more fire rate with our guns. And whenever I use the support build kind of just around Axion, I am going to be using Malevolent as my damage dealer. Therefore, I get extra fire rate. And then with the Enlightened Mage stuff, this is going to give us more skill power. That way we have just better healing. Just the more skill power we have, our healing just is better because it goes based off of our skills. Feel free to kind of switch this up depending on your play style. Like, for instance, if you don't have as much MP and you want to have less cooldown or less skill cost or whatever the case may be, you can switch the Enlightened Mage around for your respective need. Like, for instance, if you did a 2-piece of Ascending RAWRMY, you have now skill cost reduction. If you did a 2-piece of, say, where is it? Firebrand. If you did a 2-piece Firebrand, now you have more range and more skill duration. If you did a 2-piece Hunter, you have more skill cooldown. You can kind of wiggle whatever you want in here, just depending on your play style. There's also some merit here with this new set from Wall Crasher. Let me put this on real quick. This 4-piece ballistic tracker is actually kind of cool. One, the 2-piece will give you extra weak point damage, so decent in like boss fights. And 2, you have that like ricochet effect with your weapons. So I've been playing with a lot of different external components. You could even go as far as a 4-piece Enlightened Mage just for the most amount of skill power. If you really wanted to, you can throw a 4-piece on here, get more non-attribute skill power whenever you activate non-attribute skills. There's a lot you can do with the external components, so just feel free to experiment and kind of feel out whatever works best for you. As for the Arche tuning, we are going to be using this build for our actual healing build, our support build. We're going to be getting up into some fire attack as well as our skill cooldown. And everything kind of builds towards that as well. You're going to get a little bit of bonus fire attack damage here against Colossus, which is nice because we are going to be using this mainly in boss battles. But you can also just use this in general play. This makes our guns really good, and this makes our skills come back really fast. As for mobbing, I go more towards the top for non-attribute cohesion, since we are going to be just constantly throwing our second ability. This is basically just going to kick in, and it kicks in really fast. And then we also have enhanced skill power as well as enhanced skill cooldown, and all the different merits that get us there, a little bit extra health right here and whatnot. So a lot of different ways you can build your Arche tree. Again, just kind of depends on your playstyle, but both are really good for gun and cooldown, or just straight extra skill power and skill cooldown and whatnot. So pick your board respectively. Both are going to work really well for the builds. If you're dealing more damage with weapons, I would go with this one. If you're dealing more damage with your skills, I'd go for this one. For my inversion setup, this is kind of just dependent on the type of weapon I want to be using. We're obviously going to be using Arche circulation tactic for the skill cooldown, because the faster we can get our 4th ability on cooldown, the more we can heal people. Or in the second build, the faster we can get our 2nd ability on cooldown, the more we can throw it, which deals more explosive damage. So we're going to use this regardless of what build That's just going to be on both. Selective neurostimulation just for MP recovery. Also, regardless of what build, this is going to be on both. And then your rounds, your focused rounds. So like for instance, the fire focus is whenever I go into Wall Crasher, because we're going to be using Enduring Legacy. And then when I'm in, say like Purge, I'm going to be using Chill. If I wanted to make anything that was toxic damage, then I would use this. If I'm using the Thunder Cage, I'm going to be using Electric. This will depict based off of the weapon you're using or the type of activity you're doing. But these two definitely want to be on regardless of what build you're using. And then my favorite part, the fashion. I went with like a similar vibe to my Jaber. If you guys didn't see my Jaber video, check that one out for sure. But very similar style to Jaber. The only difference is I made it more catered towards green, because green I feel is like the color of healing. It works with Yujin really well. We are using the Thunderbearer skin and the sword on the back. We're using Change of Mood for the hair, and then the medical android makeup just to make his face look kind of like robotic and cool. I liked the white hair. I like white hair on a lot of the characters, like my Serena, my Jaber, my Yujin. They all have white hair. I don't know, I just think it looks cool. This is a mixture of the different blacks, the shiny metal silver like the other characters, and then I'm using Spotify green here for the like glowing parts, or like the accent color, which I went with green. Same with the sword, I'm using Spotify green. Feel free to pick a different green if you don't have Spotify green. And then the like shadows is my spawn. Thought it looked really cool. It's green as well. It's a different shade of green, so it doesn't work 100%, but I think it looks cool. Wow, you actually skipped to the screenshots. Nah, I'm just playing. That's totally cool. I hope you enjoy the screenshots, and if you have any questions, please drop a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. All right, guys, those are my two builds that I have been using on Yujin. I've been having a lot of fun with him. The support style is not necessarily needed in this game right now, but I have a feeling with Ultimate Yujin coming out in December, I think they're going to throw something hard at us, and I think we're not going to see it coming. And I think support characters are actually going to kind of jump up and shine. And if you have them built now, then you're just kind of ready for it and ready to go. So let me know what you guys think of the builds down in the comments, but I'll catch you guys next time. Stay tuned for some more stuff coming. I have a Keelan build in the works, a Sharon build. We're going to be updating our Freyna as well as our Lepic. So stay tuned for that. I know I just did a Lepic video like last video, but he got some buffs coming next Thursday. So we're going to be updating Lepic. I also want to update Ines. I have a lot of videos coming, dude. I just don't have time to record. So stay tuned for it. I got a lot of stuff coming your way, but I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, peace out, guys.